Welcome back to Rebel Headquarters. Marc Thompson here for Jank today, and a real honor to speak with this next man because he is taking time out of what is the West Coast premiere of his big film to be with us on Rebel Headquarters. The film is called The End of Meat, and he is the director, Marc Pierschel. Hello, Marc.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're very excited to have you, and I see German words on a couple of German words there on the cover. You are from the land of schnitzel, aren't you?
That's right, I am from the land of schnitzel.
And how did you get this idea that, first of all, I presume that in the land of schnitzel, you're a meat eater at some point. Isn't that the case?
Of course, yeah. That's how I grew up, around schnitzel, hamburger, and lots of meat.
And so I'm curious as to how this project came to you, and you must have had maybe a change of conscience, or are you just a filmmaker who wanted to focus on this one area?
No, I'm actually a vegan myself, so I turned vegan 18 years ago, so it's a subject that's very close to my heart. And when I saw what was happening in Germany, that there was like a shift and the idea of veganism was suddenly entering the mainstream, and even traditional meat producing companies were making vegan and vegetarian products, then I thought maybe this is not just a trend, maybe this is the beginning of a larger movement. And then that's how I started working on the film, and that's how it evolved.
Now, the film, The End of Meat, it looks at sort of the global, and by that I don't mean geographically global, although you do, I think, go all over the world and see what's happening in these different cultures. But I mean all the different aspects of meat eating.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, we went around the world to see basically what effect it would have if we suddenly stopped eating meat. Well, not suddenly, but gradually. But it was really interesting. We went to India, to the US, to Canada, all around Europe, and we see that this trend that started in Germany is catching up to other countries. We see this not just with the number of vegans and vegetarians, but also so-called flexitarians, which are people who are reducing their meat consumption, and they're not scared to try out products like the Beyond Burger or the Impossible Burger here in the States. And that's something that's like the main subject in the film. And also what's interesting is clean meat or cultured meat, so meat that's going to be grown from animal cells where animals are not being slaughtered. So if that gets to the market, I think it will radically change the way we see meat production and what ends up on our plates.
Well, the poisons associated with meat production are manifest. I mean, because to put those industrially raised animals in those close quarters around the fecal matter and the disease and all of the different things they're exposed to, even in their short lives, means that they have to be supplemented, their bodies, with all of these chemicals that we're then ingesting.
Yeah, exactly. And interestingly, that's how this whole vegan movement or rise of veganism started in Germany, because there was a horse meat in lasagna, which caused a big stir up. And then there was tainted meat or rotten meat that was relabeled and sold. So that was the initial point how Germans started shifting. And then the idea of health got attached to veganism, that you can be really healthy on a vegan diet, which a lot of people don't know. So that came together, and we saw this slow continued growth of this movement, and it's still continuing to grow now.
You talk about the effect on the environment, I know, in the film, because the effect is substantial. I mean, it is really the biggest greenhouse gas producer, and then you see all these ways where the effluents or the runoff from these livestock farms poisons entire areas, drinking water and water tables and the like.
Yeah, absolutely. 18% of greenhouse gas emissions are responsible, or is what animal agriculture is causing, and then 1/3 of the global freshwater use, 70% of the Amazon rainforest has been cut down for growing feed for the animals, and as well for farming animals. And 45% of the Earth's global land is used by animal farming. So it's a huge impact. And regarding the fact that we'll be 10 billion people by 2050, it's something that we really have to reduce.
Yeah, it's unsustainable at this level, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you went around the world, what were some of the surprises in these different cultures around this subject, around meat and diets? Were there any?
What was really interesting was we went to the first vegetarian city in Palitana in India. And it's a religious matter because there's a Jain community with a temple there, and it's holy to them. So you're not allowed to eat animal products around this temple.
The Jainists are the real. That's the real religion that respects animals, isn't it?
There's I'd say it's further than Buddhism.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, they've gone even further than Buddhism. I don't mean to say that there aren't aspects of kindness in all the faiths, but the Jainists, I think, are really, didn't mean to interrupt, but it just, when you mentioned them, they have a warm place in my heart for that reason. Go ahead.
Sure. So it was really interesting to see how the city has reacted to that ban around the temple, and they want to expand the ban for the whole city, but obviously not everyone's happy about that because it's not just Jains living there, but other religious groups as well, for example, Muslims that have a problem with that view. So it was really interesting to see what kind of effect a ban would have, and I found that it's not really that sustainable. So I think education really is key instead of banning products and educating people about the effects of meat consumption.
You know, I don't consume anything from an animal, and it's just for ethical reasons. So, but I find that when talking to people, they could be responsive to the ethical reasons, that is to say, the horror show that is factory farming or even small farming with livestock, from chickens to pork, et cetera. But there are others who are more concerned with the health issues that are associated, and others are concerned with the planet. So my question to you is, as you've traveled the world and worked on this film, The End of Meat, which premieres, as I say, tonight, and thank you for being with us during, taking a moment before the actual premiere, what did you find people spark to most of all? What carried the day? Was it health? Was it ethical? Or was it the environment?
Well, I think, in Germany, it was actually health that helped grow the movement. But what I found while making the film, I think, is the ethical part. That's something that, with the growth of the internet and transporting all these images, from factory farms and from slaughterhouses, that really, it's educating people what's happening and what's going on with their food choices. You don't see when you go into a supermarket, you see the meat, it's packaged, and you don't see where it's coming from, what kind of history this animal once had. And with groups like the SAFE movement that we've also portrayed in the film, we see that this is a growth that is globally. So people going to transport trucks, for example, and giving water to pigs on their way to slaughter, which is really something that's very powerful, and that's I think has the potential to affect larger change.
I think you're right. I think when people see what is happening, if they could see the suffering, if they could see the torture, if they could smell the death, I think they'd change. They wouldn't be able to live with themselves. I think most people would not be able to live with themselves. Now I want to ask you about where people can see the movie and what the release plans are and all that. So please fill us in.
Sure. So we're in LA tonight. We're in Toronto on Sunday. And there's still tickets available for Toronto. And the film will be out on iTunes and different outlets, Amazon Prime, Xbox, Microsoft, Google Play, on September 4th. And you can pre-order it now on iTunes for $6.99 instead of $12.99 until September 4th.
Oh,
and the
that's
website
cool.
The website is theendofmeat.com.
Yeah, theendofmeat.com. Was it hard to get financing to make the movie? I mean, where did your, unfortunately, to get your message and to get it done right, it takes money, right, to make a movie. How did you go about fundraising?
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't that easy. It was a movie that was completely crowdfunded. We had 2 crowdfunding campaigns before we shot the film and then for the post-production. So that's how we financed the film, and that's how we found our audience. And it's not that easy with this subject because we couldn't get any traditional funding.
Yeah, that's the problem with these kinds of things that really disturb the space. You know, it's very, very difficult. Well, Marc, The End of Meat, I can't wait to see the movie. I'm very excited for the message. And I know you talk to philosophers and you talk to environmentalists. There's a lot in this movie. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Marc Pierschel, the movie is The End of Meat. And the website, again, theendofmeat.com. I think it's an important message, and there it is. You can pre-order on iTunes, and the website, again, is theendofmeat.com.